Solution is pleased to present this online webinar entitled, Why Guess When You Can Test? Our speaker for the presentation today is Jenny Lassie. My name is Jeff Baker, and I will be your moderator for today's seminar. Today's presentation will last approximately 60 minutes and include a specific question and answer period at the end of the session. You may enter a question by typing it into the web conference system in the lower right-hand side of your screen and then clicking the call-out button or hitting enter on your keypad. These instructions will be repeated later in the program. If you have any technical questions during the event, please email support@highroadsolution.com. Today's webinar is being recorded, and all participant lines will be muted during the live program. Jenny Lassie has been affiliated with HighRoad Solution for 8 years, first as a client and then as an employee. With experience handling deployments and deliverability for a wide range of clients with optimized recipient engagement top of mind, Jenny routinely troubleshoots deliverability issues from ISP-level filtering to email client-level filtering, email forensics as she refers to it. She also consults with clients on authentication, content strategy, email preference center management, and other deliverability optimization tactics. And with that, I would now like to turn the webinar over to Jenny.
Why, thank you, Jeff. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to go over A/B testing. So using A/B testing, what is A/B testing, what is multivariate testing, and the 5 C's and how they apply to testing, and how to start simple, and then eventually testing more complex issues, and then some best practices and resources and takeaways. So what is A/B testing? I'm sure all of you are familiar with the concept. It's really a concept more than a feature functionality of your email platform, but A/B testing is a term commonly used in web development, online marketing, and other forms of advertising to describe simple randomized experiments with 2 variants. So you have an A and you have a B, a control, and then the other treatment that has the controlled experiment or variable in there. The formal or scientific name used for this process is hypothesis testing, but A/B testing for all practical purposes is what we're going to refer to it today as. So what is multivariate testing? Okay, multivariate testing is an internet marketing or really a term where you test more than one component of a website in a live environment. So it's really thought of in simple terms as numerous A/B tests performed on one page at the same time, and A/B tests are usually performed to determine the better of 2 content variations, whereas multivariate testing can theoretically test the effectiveness of limitless combinations. Just a note that be very cautious of sending to too many variables, as you're not really able to understand what the root reason is of any kind of lift and response, simply because there's just too many variables. So for the purpose of this webinar, we will focus on A/B testing, because for email marketing, testing more than one variable will not show you what one element is responsible for the lift and response. Okay. So email strategy. So we can see that a majority of our customers sending on the platforms that we support are not taking advantage of the built-in A/B split testing features. And that could be for really any number of reasons, but from the clients I surveyed, the reason they were not testing was because of really time limitations to do anything more complex than just sending an email newsletter. So that is taxing their resources enough, and they simply just don't have the time to do anything more than that. So thinking of 2 subject lines or having any more complex than having design create 2 different creatives to test one element, or having the copywriter tweak the tone of the story, that all takes extra time. So this is when it's time to take the bull by the horns. Really work smarter, not harder, and try to automate some of the newsletters that are more time-consuming, either by taking advantage of RSS feeds to pull in content to newsletters, or you're creating kind of the newsletter of the future that we have done for several of our customers now, completely automating newsletters using a taxonomy. But you can also analyze the strategic or perceived value of the newsletters your organization deploys to see if you can maybe combine some of them, or even dare I say it, drop one altogether if members and recipients are opting down from that particular newsletter. You really want to do that on a yearly basis just to see if there might be time saving or ways that you can time save for your internal resources. That simply, it takes time to put together those newsletters. If they're not doing that, then they have time that you can reallocate to other items such as additional strategy. So spending a little time now will help you save more time later for more strategy. Okay, so the 5 C's of email marketing strategy, as I like to call them. And the first step is configuration, or really cleaning the house. So the 5 C's are an ideal life cycle of an email marketer. It's what they eat, sleep, and breathe. I've talked about them before on past HighRoad webinars, but they apply to strategy in general and also to A/B testing. Ideally, I would like everyone attending this webinar today, or anyone listening to the recording who is not currently doing any kind of A/B testing, to start planning just one a month. Just start test one item a month and learn from that. Okay, maybe starting with the main monthly newsletter that your organization sends out, then you can eventually ramp up to 1 per week if that makes sense for your organization, if you're even sending that many. But starting out simple is the best way to go about. Anyway, so let's move on to the 5 C's of email marketing strategy here and talk about configuration and cleaning house. Sorry, I have to point it out because that's kind of my thing here at HighRoad, addressing any deliverability issues. So before you start testing, you have to make sure that you're doing everything you can to ensure that you have the best inbox percentage. Unfortunately for email marketers, you don't always have insight, and if emails are filtered and routed to inboxes, junk folders, or spam folders. So the configuration piece is huge, meaning you need to lay the foundation for the house before you can build the house. There's no if, and, ors, or buts about it. Okay. All right. So you may be sending email on a shared IP or a dedicated IP. Think of an IP address like your reputation or sender score, like your credit score. If you ding your credit score, it's not always easy or fast to recover, so it does take some time. A dedicated IP is like your own credit card, and that you don't share. Your sending activity is your sending activity alone, and your organization is solely responsible for a great, okay, or bad credit score. So we monitor all dedicated IPs for our customers on our platforms and bring anything to their attention, especially when our tools show a downward trend. Okay. And a shared IP address means you're sharing your credit score with other similar organizations. So the benefits are, if you don't send regular email traffic or you're starting with a new platform, you can send traffic almost like normal without a formal IP warming plan. The downside is that other organizations on the shared IP may have complaints that affect your ability to reach your recipients' inboxes. So that's just something to be aware of. For our member-driven organization and agencies who use HighRoad shared IP, we do bring complaints to their attention and consult with them to minimize complaint activity so activity doesn't adversely affect another organization on the shared IP. But there is limited amount of information we can gather on a shared IP, complaints just being the big key indicator there. So. Okay. And then the authentication piece. So this is often the main culprit. This is the first thing that I will address with any customers that were, troubleshooting any deliverability. So if you do not use DKIM, Sender ID, SPF, and DMARC authentication, DMARC being, it's something that you completely implement on your own without our assistance, but authenticating your email with your platform has, basically you're giving your email platform the permission and authority to send emails using your domain, okay? Then the filters could be putting emails into quarantine if you don't have this, okay? Authentication is no longer a nice to have, it's a must have. Unfortunately, if you're seeing a lot of bounce activity and you don't use authentication, it's kind of futile. This might sound harsh, but it's futile to address deliverability issues because many times the root issue is lack of authentication. It's definitely a must have, okay? even if you do use authentication, I still do recommend monitoring your bounce logs 24 to 48 hours post-deployment. So I'll get off my soapbox now, but I just had to put in my 2 cents there because that's what I do. All right, so why not just blast? Why not just start testing right now? Basically because invalids, excessive email bounces, emails filtered to junk and spam folders is a waste of money. I am frugal by nature, fiscally conservative, as many would say, and I don't like to waste money. I don't gamble. If I have put a $5 limit on myself for losing money, even in Vegas, so I'm just not a risk taker when it comes to that sort of thing. I don't like to see customers wasting money on emails either. Okay. There's also a lot of filters you have to go through, with any sense, not just your A/B split testing, but with any emails that you're deploying through your platform. It's going through ISP level filters, email server filters, all the way to email client junk folder filters. So it's going through this entire funnel before your email can reach an inbox. So you're going through a lot of steps to try and get to an inbox. So, that's why I say it's just really important to to focus on the authentication, doing everything that you possibly can to reach an inbox. And once you have those items in place, then you're able to maybe do some of the more diagnostic tests that are inside your account. For instance, in the HighRoad Solution campaign email platform, there is a SureSend deliverability report, or domain delivery report, rather. And if you enable it, you're able to see a visual representation of where your emails are going to the seed list that this is being sent to, okay? So it's showing you how many are going percentage missing, percentage going in the bulk box, and percentage going into the inbox. So it's a helpful diagnostic tool. You certainly can do one of these reports before and after authentication, just so you can prove to yourself that it does make a difference, because it certainly does. And then when you are reaching an inbox, then you can see 100% inbox, or if you have any issues with particular ISPs, then we can address some issues. Authentication is treated differently by the different free email platforms out there. So for instance, Gmail relies heavily on DKIM. Yahoo might rely more on Sender ID and SPF. So if you have all of them, you're doing what you can. Do whatever is in your control to reach an inbox. Obviously, there's going to be elements that are out of your control, but do everything that's in your control. So data hygiene, manage invalids, bounces, DKIM, Sender ID, authentication, as well as DMARC. Address any issues with filtering that you can, meaning if you go through bounce logs and you see that little ISPs might be filtering and blocking emails, then you can reach out to them on an individual level to either abuse at or postmaster at, whatever the domain is, and ask that they whitelist your IP address and your domain for future sends. So sometimes you'll get a response, sometimes you won't get a response, but just that act alone does resolve many of the issues. So, okay. All right. So the 5 C's, the second, content. After you deal with configuration, then comes content. So you can test common, subject lines. You can test differences in subject lines. You can test the tone of the content. Tone of the subject line. Is it playful? Is it serious? If you're sending an email to a list or segment that contains subscribers really that kind of cross all generational divides or demographics, testing content tone will show you if the audience is engaging with the email more or less. So you could also then learn from that maybe some of the recipients that are in the older generation respond more to serious. The younger generation might respond more to kind of tongue-in-cheek type of humor in your content. So you really need to start testing content. I highly recommend it. You can test lead story. Lead story, if it's resonating with everyone, the size of the lead story may be tested. And table of contents. So now a lot of responsive email templates now have gone down to a single column versus a 2-column design. And, therefore, sometimes the table of contents has gone away, but you might test the differences between that. You might test if a table of contents with jumps down to the content lower in the newsletter, if that performs better than maybe a single column where somebody has to use a vertical scroll to go down to content. You definitely need to test table of contents for your longer newsletters. People don't like to necessarily read through the entire thing. They're skimmers by nature, so you can test more text versus read more links, right? Or a combination, table of contents with more text with read more links. So there's a lot of options you can do to test content. Okay. Now the third step is the create. So in creating a message, there's a few things you could test, or just ideas for you to test, is you can really see, does a standard template respond better than a responsive template? So is it mobile friendly? If a lot of your audience is opening up your emails on a mobile device and you need to prove that, there's no better way to prove it than to test it and let the data and the metrics from the reporting speak volumes for what your recipients want. You can also test call to action button colors and placement. That's a very common one. Does a text link work more than a call to action button that people's eye goes to right from a newsletter? Or maybe the color. Do people respond more to red call to action buttons or to blue, or something that matches more of your branding and color palette? So these are all things you should be thinking about testing. Also layout. Does a single column layout work more than maybe a double column that might stack? Okay, and then how is that stacking done if it's a responsive email? And also images. People respond to images. Picture's worth 1,000 words. That is definitely true in today as it ever was in the past. So using effective images is very much will enhance the engagement that your recipients have with your emails. Okay. So can you trust your gut? This is a great question. One thing I giggle about all the time is how wrong I am in predicting the winners of an A-B split. Like seriously wrong. Like there's something really wrong with me that I can't ever figure it out. But seriously, I trust my gut for everything except A-B splits now. So I can accurately guess the obvious, a call to action button versus a text link. But when it comes to subtle differences, what I think will perform better is most often not the case. And therefore, any ego that I may have had in the past about, my ability to predict is completely gone. I have zero ego. I'm always wrong. And everyone's the boss of me. But I've learned that I cannot trust my gut, and I need to rely solely on data metrics to make future business decisions when it comes to email marketing and testing, okay? Or even, web landing pages and that sort of thing. I need to test and I need to see the data, because what I think is true isn't always the case. So think of it like this. Opinions are like noses. We all have one. So test and let the data speak volumes about what works with your audience. So don't rely on the opinion of the CEO or one person acting as an expert or anything else for that matter. Test with your audience, as their unique needs cannot be replicated by any other testing from any other organization. Like, you can make some general assumptions, but you need to test against your own audience. So that said, let's test your gut. Okay. So, can being more verbose get a higher response rate? We're just going to go through a little exercise, a case study workshop, if you will, so we can understand a little bit more about what your gut reaction is and compare what those results are with the actual winning results. So, can being verbose get a higher response rate? So here is our version A. Okay, this is for deliverysuccess.com, and they're selling an online template maker, right? So, they have a graphic there with a free trial button, so you can, text on it or click on a text link. You can, click on that button. And now here is version B. It has all of the elements that version A does, except for it does have some testimonials underneath it. So it's additional content. It's more verbose, but those testimonials are there, and they do stand out. They're in italics. And then you can also, look at their link at the bottom, and we love to help you succeed, right? So I'm going to go back to version A. So see version A, and then check out version B, and just kind of think to yourself, what would you do? What would you pick if you were going to be looking at both of these versions? Which one would you rather see? Okay, so again, version A and version B. All right, what do you think? Version B actually won an astounding 247% more clicks. So just going back, version B with the additional testimonials and the more content actually performed much better. And that goes against, some rules of thumb say that, less is more. That's not necessarily true in all cases. So again, testing against your own audience is going to be the best litmus test for what you should be doing in the future. Now, that's not saying that applies to everything. Those were testimonials and adding additional content. People respond to testimonials. People respond to like ratings, such as Amazon, and does something have 5 stars, or do they only have 3 stars if you're comparing 2 products side by side? Well, a lot of people will definitely take that rating system into consideration when they're making a purchase. Okay. So the next, does a larger lead story get people to click? Okay, so think about your own email newsletters and how those templates are structured. And does everything kind of given the same weight, albeit the order might determine the ranking or priority for that content? So we have version A. And so version A has, a larger lead story. The photo is bigger. The view now is larger. This is definitely given more prominence, whereas all of the articles underneath it are, although they have a hierarchy as far as the order that they appear, but they all are given the same type of prominence and real estate on the page. And then you have version B. So version B has everything with the same amount or visual space, real estate on that email, and the lead story is the same size, although it's at the top, but it is the same size as all of the other stories. So take another look at version A, and version A has the larger lead story, and then version B. And what do you think? If you were to receive that newsletter, would you pick the larger lead story and click on it, or B? Version B, the one without the bigger feature content, increased clicks by 75% and online registrations by a stunning 400%. Now this, I would have been completely incorrect. I would have chosen version A simply because I would say, wow, I'd click through to that story because it's big and it's prominent. It's not always the case. You're always going to have to test against your audience to see what resonates with them. So for this, for Bright Talk, their audience, it performed better when everything was given the same prominence. Okay. All right, so does more or less white space increase engagement? Okay, think about how you like white space. It's airy. It's not extremely verbose. Your eye seems to wander a little bit and focus on things. In heat map studies will show you there's more white space. Your eye goes directly to the kind of the upper left, and there's all sorts of assumptions you could make. Now this version A from Yahoo Travel. Super busy email template, right? There's navigation at the top. There are so many possible places to click through to this. I don't really know where your eye would go first. So we're testing out version A and version B. B has more white space, as you can see. It's a little less confusing. Your eye might know where to go. There's some buttons here for flight and hotel and for book now. Let's go back to version A. Take a look at that. And B, the more white space. Like, there's a lot going on here. I don't know where my eye would go to first. When I go to version B, my eye first goes to this cool picture because, you know, you're at work, I'm looking out the window right now. It's a cloudy, rainy day in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that looks pretty nice to me right about now. But I think, you know, kind of the general overall theme, Yahoo Travel would like somebody to go ahead and try to click through to the flight and book now. That certainly would entice me. So what would you think? Version A, version B? All right. So version A increased click-throughs by 5.6%, and heat maps showed that there was a higher engagement as a whole across the entire email. Okay? Now take a look at that. That's a really busy email, right? And you've heard it time and time again that less is more. You know, if it's confusing, maybe design is trying to convince you to go one way versus the other because they don't want to have as many design elements in the newsletter. But yet, you know, your recipients might be telling you a different story. So that's the story you need to stick with. What do your recipients want? That's really the end goal of any A/B test, is to learn from those experiences, to learn from what your recipients are telling you they want. Okay. All right. So the next in line for the case study workshop is subject line, straight shooter or a bit playful. Okay, now obviously we've kind of touched on this a little bit, in that it really sometimes can depend on your audience, and if there's, you know, multi generations that make up your recipient list, then this could totally vary. You know, straight shooter or a bit playful. Not everybody has the same type of sense of humor, so using humor can be backfire, possibly. But here is version A. Okay, this is a multilingual email. So we have the new product, big tablet or lightweight supercomputer, right? Little bit more playful. Okay, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the French. I'm very sorry for my my French-Canadian people on the webinar. Est-ce que vous comprenez l'anglais? That's all the French I know, and it got me around where I needed to be in Quebec, but that's about it. Version B, introducing the new X product, all-in-one product. Really straightforward, straight shooter. Okay. Again, with version A. So I'm Gen X. I like humor. A lightweight supercomputer. I'm like, wow, that's a really strong statement. I want to check that out. Versus, you know, if I'm kind of in a position where I'm busy, I don't have time to go through my inbox. I'm thinking about my own, you know, things that I have to do, this, that, and the other, and sometimes a subject line that just gets to the point speaks volumes to me. So this can also depend on the time of day that you're sending to your recipient. So that's another idea that you could use. Does a more playful subject line work better on a Friday morning at 10 o'clock when everyone's kind of like, yeah, it's Friday, TGIF, or on a Tuesday at 2 o'clock when everybody is in the thick of it, trying to put together their all of their deliverables for the week, right? Okay, so version A, the playful, and version B, straight shooter. What do you think? Version A or version B? All right, this is a trick question because version B, actually this is the version B, the playful version, increased opens for French-speaking Canadians. Okay. However, version A, the plain spoken version, increased opens for English-speaking Canadians. So this was an A/B split test that really kind of spans either the French or English-speaking languages, and what is preferred. So the playful version increased opens for French-speaking Canadians, and the plain spoken version increased opens for English-speaking Canadians. There we go. Say that 5 times fast. Okay, so time. Timing, in our platforms, there are built-in A/B split testing features that you can leverage, but A/B split testing has always been available. It's just really more of a concept. You're sending 2 different versions, and you're analyzing the results, and then you can send, learn from that and send, either a winning version or a champion to the remainder of your list. So what local time? You could do 50-50 splits, or you can even use 2 sending time features in the A/B split testing functionality in your account. So what local time works better for B2B email offers? So most of our association and nonprofit customers, and they're doing B2B email basically. So you're not doing commercial or retail. And so therefore testing out the times that your emails are sent would give you a lot of insight into the times that you should send. Also the days that you might want to send. So are you going to send a 9 a.m. on Tuesday and a 9 a.m. on Wednesday, and see if that might make sense. See what gets the best lift rate. Or send it 2 different times on the same day, or the same time on 2 different days. You really kind of have to find out when your recipients want to receive these emails versus your marketing calendar and determining when they should be deployed, right? Learn from when people are opening and engaging with your emails. So this one, which local time works better for B2B email offers, 9 a.m. or 1 p.m. Okay. We have version A. Very simple, straightforward text version or text-looking version of the email. So not only are you won't necessarily be sending just a straight text version, it might be just a text-looking version that you set up as your HTML message. Version B, identical. The only difference between these 2 emails is that one of them is sent at 9 a.m. and one